want to say that we met the CS.
Yes.
And the CS is just giving us excuses that she wants to do audit.
Yeah.
We are in a crisis. You cannot do audit while lecturers are on strike.
Yeah.
It shows that that ministry is disorganized. Which data have they been using to release capitation all those years? Or this capitation were just being released without any data? You can tell me that with the trapping of powers, a CS of education does not know the number of employees in a public university. You mean these vice chancellors, they get capitation and they don't file returns all those years?
So you think on the part of the Ministry of Education, there's a lot of hypocrisy?
That is a blame game.
It's just a blame game.
Blame game.
All right. Let's, come back to the issue still of the court order before we can even escalate this further. From where you see that the lecturers just won't call off the strike after an order by the court, do you think that is acting in good faith?
I think now that they have appealed the decision of the High Court, I would think that they are right to go to the Court of Appeal. And if I think what now we should expect is that the Court of Appeal should be able to listen, hear their issues, and determine this matter as fast as possible, so that if the Court of Appeal sustains the decision of the High Court, then it will, I think...
Being a governance expert,
yeah.
Once an order has been issued like this one, what is the most ideal thing to do?
The most ideal thing to do is they would have... they go to the Court of Appeal as they have gone if they have an issue with that,
yes.
And then wait for the judgment of the Court of Appeal. And I think what would be useful now is the Court of Appeal to expedite this matter so that the crisis is not deepened further. And if the court determines that the High Court decision stands, then it will be upon UASU and the other unions involved to call off the strike. Otherwise, if the Court of Appeal sustains the strike, then I think now they'll be able to give a way forward.
All right.
Yeah.
For the common mwananchi and perhaps for the person who is not able to perspectivize what this stalemate is about, walk us through, this contested CBA that the government says is a contested CBA.
I want to say that we know the people we are dealing with. Let me give you the history of IPCCF.
Yes.
In 2012, December, the University Academic Staff Union presented their proposal to IPCCF for the 2013-2017 CBA. And it took us 5 years to negotiate that CBA. Always IPCCF negotiates the CBA after the expiry of the cycle. And what we are asking as a union, who benefits from these late negotiations?
So they have never had a proactive role in terms of trying to ensure the strike doesn't happen?
There's very poor industrial relations management in public universities. Because when you negotiate a CBA at the tail end, there are people who leave the service here. The people who retire, the people who die, the people who transfer their services to other universities. And now, at the tail end of it, various universities bring these numbers of people who had even left the service. So where do they take their money? I think it is a game that they are perfected so that they benefit from the CBA. When we negotiate at the beginning of the CBA, they know they will not benefit. So they want to delay so that they can get money from people who have left the service. And that, as a union, we are not going to allow.
Oh my God. But then looking at the same thing, doesn't appear when you even talk about this IPCCF and the issues around the negotiations looking at the same, don't you think it's time this country had an honest conversation on the aspect of higher education? Because it appears like there are deep-rooted problems beyond what we are saying.
I agree with you that we need to have very proactive and structured discussions, not only on higher education matters, but on labor issues, because we can't run a country where we only react to issues when staff are on strike. Because we know very well that we have lecturers that would every 4 years would ask, or they don't even need to ask. We should be able to proactively know that they will deserve some review of whatever packages we give them. And I think now what we are looking at the moment is that government seems to have addressed concerns of the other civil servants. I know that maybe the teachers were on strike at one point. Their CBA was agreed and registered. Whether that has been paid is another issue. The doctors were on strike the other day. The nurses were on strike the other day. So I think it is very bad for our economy and even political stability to be allowing this country to run from one crisis to the other.
Yeah.
Proactively, could be able to have like the ministries concerned, the Ministry of Labor, and the other agencies that are responsible for labor, to be planning with government and again presenting their own proposals, because they know very well that after every 4 years, staff will deserve some reviews. Now, what we would have expected in the case of the lecturers at the moment, the government would have said, yes, we knew that since we had the 2013-2017 agreement expiring, we would be able to expect that something comes into force on the expiry of that agreement. They would have prepared a proposal saying that if this, according to the calculations of UASU, will cost 38 billion, what government is putting on the table. And the other issues that I think, apart from that, I think there are even pensions that they are claiming that have not been paid from the previous CBS. Yeah. So what we need to ask and demand of government is that we want proactive leadership and management of labor issues. Yeah. And then we can now get back to it after we've addressed that. The other issues that I don't think they're just talking about money here. They're also talking about conditions of service and even facilities and conditions in the institutions of higher learning. Yeah. So we need a
But obviously the big question that comes out is the issue of pay. Your engagements with the stakeholders in this particular dispute, and this time I'm talking about the Ministry of Education, you're looking at the Ministry of Labor, you're also looking at Treasury, because if the CBA was to be implemented, these people will be have been involved in the line. What reasons do they give for not honoring the CBA?
I've told you that they are just giving blame games. They want to do audit. UASU took SRC to court. I want to say that we had a right to take SRC to court, because in the first instance, the Patterson model that was used to evaluate dons is not fit to evaluate dons. That is a model that is supposed to be used to evaluate a cattle dip manager.
Why?
If you want to evaluate a don, what you should give premium is academic qualification. But academic qualification was given 15%. Then more weight was put at financial management. What I'm asking, what does a professor to do with financial management? A professor formulates theories and concepts. So you find that a farm manager at Moi University is ranked higher than a senior lecturer, because the farm manager manages finances. Right. But this senior lecturer who does not even have finances to manage, how will he be evaluated? Another thing, you cannot do job evaluation without involving stakeholders. And as a reason...
So you were not involved in the evaluation process?
We were not involved.
All right.
Another thing, this job evaluation exercise, the consultant did not understand the structure of universities, because the consultant ended now ranking universities. University of Nairobi, number 1, Moi University, Egerton University, number 2, then the rest were in category 3. What we are asking, what will happen to this student who graduates from University 3? His degree will be devalued. What will happen to this professor from University 3 or University 2? How will they be paid? How will we be negotiating the pay structure for university lecturers? So I will be negotiating for University 3, University 2, University 1. They didn't understand. According to the consultant, a head of department is a job.
Head of department.
Head of department is a job. Deanship is a job. What they don't know, that you can be a dean in a faculty, and that does not mean that you are the most qualified person in that faculty. They didn't understand. And you expect UASU to accept that?
Obviously, you won't. But then again, let me ask a question, because there are concerns amongst stakeholders that this CBA is implementable, perhaps because of the country's financial situation. Would you be willing to renegotiate it?
Once it is registered,
yes,
I will not renegotiate. Once the CBA is negotiated and registered at the Employment and Labor Relations Court, there's no negotiations. It is,
and you won't?
And I would not negotiate that. I do renegotiation again.
All right. There appears to be what you would call defective policies in terms of our handling of the education, the education docket. There appears to be defective policies. Do you think this should be the first area of focus for the Cabinet Secretary for Education?
I think that should be the second area of focus.
All right.
The first area of focus is to resolve this crisis. Because I don't think it is right for a country to sit back and look at over 600,000 students out there wandering in the campuses, or some of them have been able to go home.
Yeah.
And then we have a number of, I think, close to over 27,000 staff that are affected, lecturers plus other technical and support staff. So I think the first priority for the CS is to resolve this crisis as soon as possible. What I would expect the CS to focus on, whether they can be able to register the CBA or not. If they want to show some good faith to the nation, they should be able to sit down with the UASU and the other unions involved and say, this is what we are offering as a return to work formula. We know very well that talking about this CBA may take an hour, may take a week, may take a month, based on the structure of the discussions and the issues involved. But we need to get the lecturers and the students back to class. Get them back to class, discuss and agree on this CBA, get it registered first, then begin to look at, because I think if we start at the policy level now, we might prolong the crisis. We resolve the crisis, but we know that there are policy gaps. I think I was even surprised when I was talking to Dr. Wesonga earlier, that they don't even have a representative in the consultative council. I think to me that is an omission or a gap that we need to address as a country. You cannot be able to talk about universities and exclude students and lecturers in any forum. So we need to, after we have resolved this crisis, we have an agreeable CBA registered, then we need to look at, in terms of our policy and legislative framework, are there gaps? Which I believe there are. And then we can be able to start a national discussion around these gaps.
The CS says she won't engage the lecturers until they call off this strike. And I want to know from you, Constantine, what concessions are you going to have? Or is it this hardline stance from government, hardline stance from the lecturers? Are you going to have any concessions at one point?
I want to say that this strike left my hands a long time ago.
It is in whose hands?
The strike is now in the hands of the members. And members would not allow me to call it off before they get their 2017-2021 CBA. I don't want to die.
So you're saying there will be no concessions?
That's what we want. We want to negotiate the 2017-2021 CBA.
Period.
Period.
Is talking about. Let's just bring it back to Constantine and our governance and education expert. And I'll start again with you, Constantine. First of all, responding to the claims by the Cabinet Secretary for Labour that you have taken a hardline position, you're not willing to negotiate, and the demands that you're placing on the table, that you're introducing new demands to the table. And as you respond to that, tell us what is in this CBA that other than the pay aspect.
I want to say that the Ministry of Labour should be neutral if they want to arbitrate this issue.
And you think they're not?
I want to say that they are not.
Okay.
Because if you check the memorandum of claim that IPCCF took to the Employment and Labor Relations Court, compare it with the conciliation report that the Ministry of Labour also took to court. You can't differentiate between who copied who. It is a photocopy of the memorandum of claim.
Okay.
So we just feel that these are people who are working together. Because the memorandum of claim cannot be the same with the conciliation report. Another thing I want to say, the CS Labour invited us for conciliation. As a union, we went to the conciliation table in good faith. Our social partner sent the advocate. This advocate is also an employee. So what we are wondering, how can a union negotiate with a fellow employee? Right. We expected to negotiate with our employer. Another thing, one person can be the secretary, the spokesperson, the chairperson, the employer, and also the advocate. Is there goodwill from the part of IPCCF? Another thing what we are asking, there were so many parties to this dispute. SRC, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Education, National Treasury. Where are they at the conciliation table?
Yeah.
Where are they? You expect the union to negotiate with a fellow employee?
So they gave the talks a wide berth when you were called for conciliation.
According to them, they feel they are negotiating with us, sending one employee to come and keep us busy.
But let me ask you, because I asked you this question and you said there will be no concessions on your part, the strike has already left your hands. Is it likely that this is the same stance you went to at the conciliation table? Because I would bet that on a conciliation table, there should be a will to compromise.
As we went, you want us to compromise with who? With our fellow employee. Why can't the parties that were in dispute go to the negotiating table so that we negotiate as social partners? Where are they? Where is the Ministry of Education at the conciliation table? Where is the National Treasury? Where is SRC? Where are they?
Okay. Well, quite a huge one. But then the question of a student here, and I've seen several here talking about how they're likely to graduate in 2020, and others talking about they have been in the first year, first semester for the last 2 years because of the strikes by lecturers. There's one who is supposed to, and had written an open letter to President Uhuru Kenyatta that he's supposed to finish. He was supposed to finish his course last year. Up until today, he's not even sure whether they will graduate. And the question is, in this whole conversation, are we really concerned about the student and the parent who is actually investing money for the child to be in school, to be in university?
Yeah, I think that is what I heard the CS Labour saying, that for the sake of the country, the parties involved in this dispute should be able to reflect and look at the county as a whole. Because one thing that will happen for sure is that these students are going to be delayed. 40 days is almost half of a semester. And that means if we don't resolve it now, they are going to lose a semester, or they're likely to lose 1 year. That will be very expensive for the parents, because if you lose a semester or a year, the implication is that you are likely to either pay, if you don't pay, even if they are not asked for new fees the next time or the next year, they'll have to pay for the living costs of the students. What I would expect that to happen is that CS Labour should be able now to look at how do they convene an all-inclusive conciliation meeting. And I would have to plead with the Daktari here that if they are able to get their counterparts from these agencies we are talking about, they should be able to go, they have presented a proposal, they should be able to go to that meeting ready to discuss. Because I think if we are negotiating in a dispute, there should be a discussion.
But then he says the Ministry of Labor appears to be a party to the dispute other than being a neutral party.
I think what I hear from Daktari is that there are issues. No, you can't go into a negotiation without a framework. There are issues with the process, there are issues with the structure of that discussion. If those issues are resolved, like say they're able to get the right people from the right agencies to talk to, they come with whatever else, because I know they have presented this CBA and the Universities Council, the Ministry, Treasury, and the SCRC, they have the proposals that the lecturers have made. Yeah. They could be able to come with their proposals and say, these are the issues that we can be able to deal with. These are the issues that we need to talk about, and they're going to be able to structure that, saying this we can resolve in a short-term basis, medium-term basis, long-term basis, and I believe Dr. and his team will be ready to discuss.
Dr. If you were to get these people on a roundtable for conciliation, would you be willing to candidly discuss the strike?
We are very ready. We want the right people to come to the conciliation table. We can't negotiate with our fellow employees. We want IPCCF. IPCCF is Interpublic Universities Council Consultative Forum. Where are they? The vice chancellors have hijacked the role of IPCCF. They are also employed by IPCCF.
Yes.
Why have they usurped the powers of the employer? Can the parties to this dispute go to the conciliation table and we solve this issue once and for all?
Yeah.
Another thing what we are saying, as a union we are very flexible. The public sector employees started enjoying their 2017-2021 CBA last year from 1st of July. Why are lecturers being discriminated? We are very ready to negotiate.
But let me bounce this back to you, this question on the plight of students. As lecturers, are you shaken, and even inside your conscience, about a student who was supposed to finish their course way last year, but after your 53-day strike and now a 40-day strike, that they will not be able to finish their course in 2 years?
I want to say that as a union, we really empathize with our students.
And
I wish they could give us time to sort this issue once and for all. You know, this sympathy that we have for our students is what made us to call off the strike last year before we resolved our issues. We called another strike before we solved all the issues. We called another strike. And now this is the fourth one. We don't want to call another strike before we sort all the issues that lecturers have in this country. One of them, basically all medical schemes in public universities have collapsed. You go to the hospital and you are told your university is not paying, so you are not remitting, so you will not be treated here. And then your own contribution for National Hospital Insurance Fund is not remitted. Another thing I want to say is statutory deductions. You have been deducted.
you talk about NSSF,
RBA, name them SACCO, and they're not remitted. And the union are saying that is a criminal act, and the vice chancellors that are capable should resign, or as a union will take them to court. Let us finish this. The next thing is we are going to sue them.
You're going to sue the vice chancellor?
The vice chancellors.
All right. Apart from, the issues of pay, remittances, what are you negotiating for that can improve the quality of education in Kenya?
I want to say that university lecturers are overworked and underpaid. University lecturers teach back to back. Conventionally, a university calendar should be 2 semesters. But nowadays we have trimester. You finish with a normal load, there's evening class. Evening class, there's holiday class. When do you rest? When do you even prepare? When do you do research? And another thing, the lecture halls are overcrowded. There are no facilities. I wish one day you go around and see how students are doing examination. It is a cattle dip. When we are at the university, you knew I'm sitting here, the next person will be there. Huh? You get your card and you know where you are going to sit. But nowadays, people just rush to the hall. And what we are saying, if we want quality university education, let us fix this problem once and for all. Check the lecturer-student ratio.
Yes.
Huh? It is 1 to 70. Even the primary schools, they have 1 to 30. But in universities, they are now relying on part-timers that they do not even pay. These part-timers nowadays are holding marks So we have this perennial problem of missing marks. And I want to say that in a university, you cannot do examination before you pay. You cannot go to class before you pay. Where do these past chancellors take the money they collect from students? And they don't pay part-time lecturers.
All right. But then look at the entire thing as it is. And it's a conversation that we have postponed having in terms of the quality of education in our universities and the proliferation of parallel students and what you would call the strain it has had on our education system. Could you speak about that?
I think listening to the car here,
Yes.
John, the problem is bigger than we thought.
Yeah.
Because you know, in the public domain, we are only hearing about lecturers demanding for money.
The pay, yes.
We have more serious issues that we need to focus on and address as a country.
Yes.
One is we need to look at this issue of the workload. What is the best ratio? If we are going to talk about quality education at the university level,
Yes.
the Commission for University Education should be able to come up and tell us here, look here, this is the reasonable number of staff, both in terms of lecturers, technical support staff, and the other support teams that each university should be able to have. Then we need to look at facilities. Do we have adequate lecture halls? Do we have adequate libraries? Do we have adequate laboratories based on the courses that they are offering? We need to be candid about this so that we are able to fix the problems facing university education. Because I believe even if you were able to address the CBA now, and you don't address the issue of the numbers, you don't talk about adding more lecturers to the universities, we are going to continue to complain about the quality of education.
And it's something I would want the Constantine to speak about before the Vice Chancellors have their day, because we also talked to them and they responded. And we'll be bringing you that in a few. But Constantine, there's a question by one of our viewers. How will you feel receiving pay for 40 days that you've not worked?
As we are ready to work, it's only that there was a stalemate.
Okay.
And once this stalemate is resolved, we'll go back to work.
But you get pay for 40 days you have not worked.
No, that one we'll discuss when we're discussing the return to work formula. Our people are in campus. They have not absconded duty. You see, they are striking in campus. They are striking. It's only that the employer has refused to listen. So basically, if you are in campus picketing, it means you are working.
You're in your workstation.
You are in your workstation.
That sounds like a justification for the pay that you will get. It looks like already you have decided you will want the pay for the 40 days. But very quickly, on the quality of education that he was talking about, there's this concern that and I would rather say, I will say this very boldly, there are concerns that the students you're churning are half-baked and that they cannot solve any problem in Kenya, and particularly when you talk about issues like food security. And we are having people who cannot give us solid researches or solid solutions to our problems as a country. Who would you blame for that?
I want to say that with the crowding that I've described here, you cannot have a one-on-one with a student. Long time ago, when we were at the university, we had the lecturer lecturing you. Then after that, you'll have tutorials. Tutorials are not there because lecturers are overworked. The last class I taught, I had 1,000 plus students. When I meet them on the streets, they know me.
But you don't know.
I don't know them because it was a public rally. With that public rally, can we have quality education?
All right. Carissa from Mombasa telling us about what the lecturers are saying as well as the students. Unfortunately, we have to put this to a cap. But before we do, let me engage Constantine again and our governance expert, our governance and education expert once more. And I want us to go to the specifics this time because I'm running short of time. If the CBA was to be implemented as it were, how much would the lowest ranking lecturer earn and how much would be the highest paid earn?
I want to say that we have not negotiated, so I can't be specific.
Okay. But what are you looking
But
at?
what we are saying there are salary distortions and conversions in our pay structure, where you find that an assistant lecturer who has reached the bar earns the salary of a professor. And this does not encourage scholarship. Because how will you convince this assistant lecturer that he needs to do his PhD and also be a professor if already is earning the salary of a professor?
Yeah.
And these distortions have been created by the global figures we get when we negotiate. We were given 7.8 billion. Yeah. We didn't know how the Ministry of Education arrived at this 7.8 billion. So it is just distributed, and it is distributed haphazardly. Last year we were given 10 billion. This 10 billion was distributed haphazardly. And it creates distortions in the pay structure.
With no regard to merit?
With no regard to merit, it is just distributed. If you can put the salaries in our universities, the curve is not even there. Some are up there, some are down. Huh? So what we are saying as a union, first of all, we want the salary brackets to be structured so that even if there are overlaps in grades, this overlap should not exceed 21.4%.
Okay, all right. All right. Let's just do the last bit, and that is as regards courses that could be redundant, or courses that are of no use in our universities. Could that fear be true?
I think that could be true because we've realized that if you look at the absorption rate for graduates of our public universities, the market does not seem to absorb at the rate that we expect certain graduates from certain courses or units. So it is possible that some of the courses that we offer now are not relevant to the market. So what I think should happen when we talk about the audit that the government is talking about and the job evaluation, they should also do an overriding program audit to see that which courses do we need as an economy or do we need as a region? Yeah. Because we are not just preparing our graduates for the Kenyan market, but we're also looking at how they can be able to support and get absorbed in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So I think this is something that we need to consider, but I believe it is something that will be able to take time and to be done properly. So it shouldn't be hurried now. It cannot address this current crisis. We deal with this crisis, and then we structure it in a way that it becomes objective, and we do it in a way that everybody should be able to feel it is done properly. And if we come up with a recommendation that the university should be able to either focus more on this and not on this, all the stakeholders, lecturers, students, parents, and even the other agencies involved in higher education should take part in that process.
Absolutely. Dr. Constantine, I'll give you that camera for 30 seconds to give reassurances to Kenyans and your students that once you're called to the table by all the stakeholders that you talked about the Ministry of Education, National Treasury, as well as SRC, that if they call you to the table, you will be committed to even concede in events when you need to ensure that this stalemate is done. The camera. Actually, there's one. Yes.
I want to say that as a union, we are ready.
Yes.
Because students are suffering. But we want the right people at the conciliation table. Let them not send proxies that will not solve this issue. And we have even given them proposals. We've said that this is a 4-year cycle. The government, if the government feels burdened, we should negotiate. Then this CBA is implemented in phases. I don't know what is difficult in negotiating, because we are 10 months late.
All right.
The government can pay arrears and factor in 1 year, then the remaining 2 years now, they can factor in the coming budgets.
Okay.
We are willing.
All right. The unions are willing. That is what Constantine says. The unions are willing. And this ball is in the court of government now as it is. Please, that we engage all of us in good faith to ensure that this stalemate is over. Because at the end of the day, we must be very clear that there are students who are in these universities studying and their parents are paying hefty fees for that matter, and then still there's nothing to show for it. And let's hope, like Dr. Constantine says, that everybody will come to the table with clean hands. My name is John Jacob Kioria. On behalf of everybody, including our reporters who've traveled around this county and town, ensuring that these stories were up and ready for you, our cameramen who are in studio, as well as the editorial, technical, and production teams, thank you very much for making this a success. My name is John Jacob Kioria. On behalf of Catherine Ochenga, have yourself a good night. God bless.